Hey folks, welcome to our exclusive webinar today, where we are hoping to uncover some of the secrets of bringing high-end luxury into the digital world. Today we'll be looking at some of the innovative strategies and technologies that are redefining luxury retail online. Imagine walking through the sort of halls of a high-end boutique surrounded by all this amazing craftsmanship and opulence and elegance, and now imagine trying to replicate that exact same experience online, and that's what we're here to unveil today. So on today's webinar, we have myself. My name is Zishan. I am a senior merchant success manager here at Shopify Plus. I look after our Plus merchants, and we also have George Linton, who is from By Association Only. George, do you want to intro yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure, of course. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm George. I'm the strategic director at BAO, or By Association Only. We are the Shopify Plus agency for design-conscious luxury brands, essentially. I've been at the agency for around 5 years, but have been sort of in e-com and digital for over a decade now, which makes me feel quite old. Been working with clients such as Amley on helping formulate tech stacks, and then also looking at sort of longer term strategic goals and how we can help facilitate growth for our merchants.
Amazing, thanks George. And we also have Emily here today. Emily, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. I'm the e-commerce and digital marketing manager at Temperley London. So I've been in that role now also literally a year now, coming up to this week. And before that worked for other fashion brands and premium fashion brands as well. So yeah, Temperley London, for those of you who don't know, is a British women's wear luxury brand. We're founded by Alice Temperley NBE about 22 years ago now, and we're headquartered in Somerset. Somewhat misleading with the name, but yeah, we relocated to Somerset in the pandemic, and that's really where the heart of the brand is. Alice's family farm is there. And yeah, I mean, we pride ourselves on highly embellished gowns and dresses predominantly, very intricate embroideries, highly skilled sequin work, hand-painted original prints. But aside from dresses and gowns, we do wider categories, and more recently sunglasses, swimwear, and interiors and factors also. And what else might there be worth saying? We have, aside from our online store, obviously we have stores in Somerset. So our headquarters also have our exclusive brand outlet. We've got our bridal flagship store there. So we also do bridal made to order. And we have further stores in London, Chelsea, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Amazing. Thank you, Emily. And I'd also like to say thank you to Clayview. So Clayview have put this webinar together. Clayview is an AI search and product discovery suite for e-commerce. And we will have Claudia and Sarah from Clayview and Harper on at the end to answer some questions as well. Harper is a door-to-door style concierge, bringing the convenience of online with the experience of sort of shopping in store to your door. We have had some registrants that have submitted questions through the form, so we will be answering those first at the end, but feel free to drop any questions in the chat. You'll see that sort of highlighted at the bottom. Just some general housekeeping. The webinar lasts around 45 minutes. It will be recorded, and we can share the recording afterwards. And yeah, I guess we can get right into it. So firstly, a question for Emily. Emily, what were the main challenges that Temperley London was facing with its previous platform, and how did Shopify address some of those challenges?
Yeah, so we were platform Shopify Plus with the help of George and the brilliant BAO team in November last year. So when I came into the role and inherited our e-com ecosystem, it was Magento 2, and essentially we had been burdened with incremental costs, updates, and obviously credit to our agency back in the day, but essentially we had slipped too far behind to really have that foundation of a luxury online experience. So the goal with the project and replatforming was really to get to a place where we had not only a an ability to manage an ecosystem that was going to be more cost effective for us, but also afford us more agility, ability to scale, obviously access to the amazing plug and play partners that Shopify has, and ultimately give us autonomy as well over managing that. I mean, we're a lean team. It's myself, I have a merchandiser, a customer care executive. So how we had, essentially it was affording us a way to manage things autonomously and not be reliant on constant dev support. So that was really the goals internally, whilst also, of course, elevating the brand to a luxury level and affording our customers a truly luxurious experience, and that be conversion optimized.
Amazing. And Emily, is there any insights or lessons that you could possibly share around that migration process that may benefit other brands that are potentially thinking of making that move?
Of course, there's a lot to share about that. I'd say we heavily lent on the expertise of George and the team. It was having a partner that was an extension of our team, given that we're such lean size of the business. So everything from kind of the design language to scoping the tech stack and what our priorities were, leaning on their experience was invaluable for us. So I mean, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I would say to anybody who's going through that process is find the right partner and really lean on their brilliant guidance.
Find yourself a George, right? George, could you also touch on by association only's role in that migration as well?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So we kind of contributed, as Emily said, around 3 areas. It was the design, which I think it's fair to say it was something of an overhaul. We typically, at the beginning of projects, try to understand the direction the brand wants to move in. Is it an evolution? Is it a revolution? And it was very much the latter here. So it was about making sure that we could deliver a front end experience that was in line with the color that the brand has and the strong identity that the brand has, especially for that in-store experience. And it was not quite there for the online experience with the previous website. It was the feeling that the team had. We then sort of worked on like the technical migration and the build. So we brought across customer information, order information, product, blogs, sort of any content that existed on the previous site. And then sort of built that into the framework of the new Shopify store. And then my part was around kind of consulting on the tech stack. So Emily and I had lots of fun conversations looking at different Shopify apps and looking at lots of functionality that could kind of deliver and not sort of hinder the experience that Temperley were after.
Thanks, George. Emily, were you going
to? Yeah, I was going to jump in.
No, feel free to jump in. Yeah, all good.
You touched on the tech stack there, George, and it's so true. I mean, so much of the focus was, figuring out what it is that we wanted and what we needed, and that be, of course, customer-led or consumer-led, but also affording us, like I said before, kind of the automation and the efficiencies that we were challenged by with those friction, the areas of frictions and challenges that we had previously with our mentor setup. So, I mean, the tech stack we now have, I think it's so optimized to deliver what we need for the customer, but also automated for us. And all of that is working so brilliantly and seamlessly together in a way that's not compromising the design either. So that was an important thing, wasn't it, George, that we looked at partners that were going to be customizable in a way that was seamless for the customer and didn't compromise the visual design and the work that BAO did there. It's so, like I said before, there's such a wealth of vendors out there with Shopify. It can be a little bit like being a kid in a toy shop, I thought. So, there's always so many amazing innovations. I mean, AI is all the talk at the moment. It's hard to know, I think, what to prioritize and what to invest in, especially when your brand asks this. So again, like leaning on George's expertise and guidance to funnel us to the priorities and also not go crazy with a tech stack that ultimately we then also can't manage.
Definitely can be, as you say, a kid in a toy shop. I think there's lots of gadgets out there and lots of functionality that's really exciting. I think one of the things that I sort of lean on and get excited by, and the fact that, I think worked really nicely with the way we built the tech stack together for this project, was the way it all talks to one another. And rather than it just sort of being isolated bits of functionality, they all sort of build on top of one another and are greater than the sum of their parts.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing, George. Emily, you're totally right. I think when you search for something on the Shopify App Store, it can be overwhelming, right? You get so many different results. So I think it's important to lean on agency partners, or even the merchant success team within Shopify to get those recommendations. George, can you provide any examples of specific technologies or solutions that have been really effective for enhancing that customer experience and driving those conversions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would hope all of them that we've got on the site. But certainly, yeah. I personally, I really love the way that we've implemented Clever, funnily enough, on this one. I think that the level of customization to kind of deliver the experience that we wanted was ideal. Micro interactions from the way that the search even just looks within the header, I think, is really nice. It kind of has an element of brand characteristic within it, whilst also being very clear and obvious how to engage with it. As soon as you tap or click into it, we've got a really lovely kind of aesthetically driven overlay, but it's one that is quite customized in the sense that the Temperley team and Emily have got the ability to populate that with their own content that allows them to kind of drive specific collections. And one of the things that was a key part of this project is that Temperley has different types of customers. There's bridal customers, there are customers that are looking for ready to wear, there's interiors, even, as we talked about, as Emily mentioned. So the ability to kind of index all of that ancillary content alongside products and facilitate the journey that every customer needs, whilst also unveiling that and showcasing the fact that this is, it's not just bridal that Temperley do, if that's all you've known them for historically, I think it's definitely been a big part of the success of the project, I'd say.
Amazing. And I think what's evident as well is when you go in the Temperley store is there's been no compromise on design, right? All of these third parties that you are using fit into the main brand, which is super important. On that, Emily, do you, other than Clevio, what would you say has been your favourite sort of piece of technology you're using on Shopify?
Gosh, yeah, there isn't a favourite one really. I mean, they're all brilliant. But I think, first of all, going back to what George was saying there around Clevio, I think what's been really interesting for us as well is primarily, like George was saying, indexing content and serving content that isn't necessarily shoppable product, like our bridal collection. But, we were looking for a solution that was going to be able to handle more complex terms, synonyms, spelling mistakes, which can happen all the time. And we were expecting to have, much more sort of specific intent driven search, but actually what we've now benefited from is that insight and can make actionable decisions based on the insight we're seeing on Clevio's back end. So an example of that, for example, is that we had, we were expecting, like I said, more sort of specific keywords, but dresses just happens to be the top search term, which I found really interesting. It goes to show that there are people coming to our site, despite dresses being one of the key categories in a menu, they're coming to be inspired and look for dresses more generally and be funneled down that way. And obviously Clever is facilitating that. But another one on that is actually we've seen pajamas be a search term, which isn't a product category that we sell and we haven't done for years. I think that comes from the fact that we've got a British Airways first class partnership. So we do the first class passengers pajamas and cosmetic pouches, but we're seeing weekly searches for pajamas. So that data has now informed our product and design teams, and we're now looking at introducing pajamas later this year. So yeah, I mean, it's worked with us in tandem with providing that customer experience. So that's been really brilliant. I mean, other tech stack call outs there is we've got Klaviyo for ESP, SMS marketing, and back in stock, which is actually a really important one, that facilitating that flow and reminding customers when something comes back into stock, because we have a really low inventory holding, as so much of it is handmade, made to order. So that's been really driving value for us. And then we've also got the likes of Gorgeous for customer service. And actually that was a big step for us itself, because on the previous site, everything was just manual inboxes, WhatsApp channel, social media, everything was siloed. And finally, we've got something that's centralizing all that, all those customer communication channels, and we're able to then have more data insights on that and funnel it and work much more efficiently and benefit of the automation capabilities that Gorgeous offers. We also have Swim for wish lists, which is a really interesting one as well. Going back to the kind of discovery side of things, the wish lists part was something where we were discussing, George, weren't we, about how we can kind of facilitate that inspiration piece and customers planning their occasion wear, because Temperley is occasion wear driven, and whether that is, you know, a party or a wedding that's coming up, or essentially customers are now able to, almost in a Pinterest style, build multiple wish list boards, and then we are able to target customers through our Klaviyo integration, because the two also integrate, and essentially, have those customers visit us and re-engage, and that's been really fantastic. In fact, actually, since the replatform, we've seen engaged sessions increase by 25%, which I think is brilliant, and no doubt, like the likes of Klaviyo and Swim and all the other touch points that we've integrated have really added value to that.
Amazing. It's interesting just hearing you talk there around Gorgeous and stuff. It's like the migration has impacted each part of the business. You know, every element of the business it's touching, which is super interesting. Emily, I'd like to move on slightly and talk a little bit about the competing customer journey, so between in-store and online. And just in the prep for this webinar, I just really liked how you thought about that. So if you can just touch on that a little bit too, that would be great.
I mean, first to say, anybody who's stepped into one of the Temperley stores, they hopefully will have had a really immersive experience around the world of Temperley. And we playfully coined this as Alice in Wonderland. I mean, Alice does this herself. It very much is about the joy of exploration and immersing yourself in kind of the weird and wonderful. It was obviously a challenge how to replicate that in the online world. And the truth is we still have work to do on that. We don't yet have, for example, Shopify POS to have that omni-channel overview of the customer. So that's something that's being roadmapped for this year. But it's really important for us that we're able to facilitate and meet the expectations of a customer in the online the same ways they would have in the offline world. So really, like, fundamental to that has been Harper. So we're really pleased to have partnered with Harper Concierge for the new website. And essentially, I know you introduced them earlier, what we're facilitating is that customers in the Greater London area are able to, free of charge, build a basket and have that delivered by a Temperley trained style concierge at a time that suits them. They have an appointment, they can explore and discover Temperley items free of charge, and whatever they choose to keep at the end of that appointment, they pay for. Otherwise, the remainder gets returned to us by Harper. So, you know, not only is that facilitating like an amazing way that customers can have, it bridges that offline and online experience for customers, bringing the store to them at home. It's also for us, you know, a brilliant way that we can address return rate has been a big thing for us, and this is actually seeing us have that stock back in half the time that a traditional return would be. So it's, Harper has been brilliant in that. We've seen really interesting statistics in that. Not the customers that are engaging with it, predominantly new customers, first-time customers. I think it's sitting around 78% of customers are first time. So, acquisition-wise, fantastic for us. But they're also purchasing like higher value items and bigger baskets. So consequently, our AOV has also increased. Our overall channel AOV has grown by 32% in this time since we've introduced Harper. So no, it's been like invaluable, and it's obviously an incredible experience for the customer to have that. And the Net Promoter Score speaks of itself for that, but also for us in terms of delivering that offline experience and bringing Temperley to their home.
The other thing I think that's really interesting about it as well, and I think it's something that's quite hard to measure, but I think the idea of, even if you're outside of that London catchment area and the service isn't available to you, the fact that you can see that this service is a part of the offering, I think holds some value to, especially to people that might have never made it to the store previously, to kind of understand, oh, right, this level of service is out there and exists. I think it sort of positions you as a kind of, there's an element of trust and authority that, you hold potentially there, and it indicates towards the quality of the items and, justifying, the higher price point versus something else they might be considering.
So right. I mean, so much of luxury shopping is, fostering that trust and that quality. And of course, the redesign has done that. In, prime examples, we've got bigger images on PDP, the level of information that we go into, and being service-led, which obviously Harper is great for. And it's an interesting point about the customers that are outside of London. We sometimes choose to even advertise Harper to our international customers because we know a high net worth client travels to London, a couple of times a year potentially. And so Harper isn't strict on being to someone's home. It could be a hotel bedroom or an apartment. So it's an interesting one. Like you say, it's hard to measure, but hopefully it facilitates that kind of level of service and trust that we want to emulate as a luxury brand.
Yeah, and looking at some of the figures you were mentioning there, Emily, too, that's obviously helping with discovery and customer acquisition too, which is fantastic. George, could you touch on a little bit more about the bridal side of things and the non-shoppable product, and how you guys have thought about that?
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So definitely, as mentioned before, Clever can help for that. But for customers that aren't using search, there's strong representation within the navigation towards both shoppable and non-shoppable content. Really, the goal with the bridal customer really is to generate appointments essentially and drive physical interaction with the potential customer. So I think that does it has to be a completely different considered customer journey, alongside the fact that there is ready to wear bridal product available to customers as well. So it's about tying those two things in together and weaving the journeys seamlessly, but for that customer to kind of understand and educate them along the way. So there's lots of content that's kind of not shoppable, and is really kind of delivering this education piece across the site. And the idea is to make sure that they can find and weave their way through depending on where they are within that education point. And yeah, to Amelie's point, I think it was about from a design perspective, kind of using larger imagery to really kind of convey the quality and to showcase the fact that, Temporary are experts in this area, essentially.
Cool. I'm going to a little bit move on into the product discovery space. So, George, how would you say that product discovery in the sort of like online retail / luxury space has like evolved, and what role does Clearview and other solutions like Clearview play in that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely huge. I sort of, in day-to-day sessions with our clients, drill on about product discoverability no end, and I think that's through third parties as much as it is through merchandising strategies, as much as it is through the application and use of filters even. I think really getting to grips and understanding how people are interacting with those parts of the site is really crucial. With search in particular, I think metrics to really think about are percentage of users that are using it. Is it easy to find? Is it easy to interact with? Once you're there, what's the conversion rate like? And then from there, you can be incredibly granular about the way that you go into this, right? So you can look at particular search terms and measure against the conversion rate of the wider site or against other search terms, and you can really start to think about your merchandising strategies for those. Should actually I be redirecting them to a collection, so I don't have to, to Amelie's point before, if you're a small team and you've got a collection page to merchandise and you've now also got the search results page to merchandise, should I look at redirecting them to a collection page so I don't have to do the job twice, essentially? I think is a really important part of it. Absolutely. And it's everything in the conversion funnel, product discoverability, isn't it? It's all about getting people towards product. It's such a crucial step in that. And we're lucky if we're on Shopify for the fact it's the second most used checkout in the world. We don't really have to worry too much. There's obviously some level of customization we can do there in the checkout, and there's more coming with extensibility. But that part of the funnel really is we can feel very secure in our understanding of and not have to worry about it too much. And it's those earlier parts and driving them into the car, into the checkout is the real key.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Amelie, sorry, were you going to say something there?
No.
Cool. A quick one on that, like on the discovery piece. How do you ensure that experience remains consistent, right? Because in store, I would imagine you have your Temperley experts that can chat. And so how do you then translate that in-store experience online and the discovery piece specifically?
Building on what George said there, what we did with Clayview as a prime, as the search tool, we've exposed it as well on the website. So actually we are funneling more traffic through search, and that all the things that George has already touched on, the fact that we've got the CMS content and able to funnel people to PLPs instead of necessarily the product, it is facilitating that, hopefully, the joy of discovery. And we're under no illusion where our RRP is above £1,000, or the average RPs are above £1,000, that customers aren't necessarily going to convert on their first visit. It's about kind of understanding the intent and ensuring that joy of exploration, the Alice in Wonderland, as I mentioned before, regardless of where they are in their purchasing journey. So, we could be looking at converting in terms of getting sign-ups to our newsletter list, or getting someone to build that list, like I mentioned before, and then eventually coming back to convert. So it is really about building and facilitating that discovery. And as I mentioned, the dresses example of that being a search term, I think that is telling that customers are coming to Temperley to be inspired. The design capabilities of Clever has been amazing. So it is that kind of seamless discovery of product, and it hopefully is performing and doing what a customer is needing. But also, again, going back to Harper, that really is the way that we're bridging that discovery in the online to the physical. As I mentioned, it is predominantly first-time customers. We're allowing them now to have a try before you buy experience at no extra charge to them, and that's amazing. We're able to do only so much in the online world. Telling them about the product, the craftsmanship, showing them the detail of that embroidery and the level of detail that we go into. When they're actually able to see that product in the flesh, that should hopefully be that magic moment. We know that Harper and Clever has been fundamental in that whole discovery piece for us.
I think to your point as well, Amelie, people probably aren't going to purchase on their first session. I'm sure there's a good deal that do, but the idea that, I think the wish list, therefore, is actually is really important in the product, maybe not discoverability, but in terms of being able to find your way back to where you were previously. That then, is also a really useful tool for customers to be able to navigate their way around the site and not have to sort of start from scratch again, thinking I searched dresses originally and that's what got me there. That could then take them a while to get back to that point. So
and actually, again, the bridal thing comes to mind because it's a different type of customer journey being a Temperley bride versus a ready-to-wear shopper. You're planning months, if not like a year in advance of that event, so you're going to be hopefully visiting the site way early just to discover and explore potentials, and it's about us hopefully engaging them enough to have them return time and time again and eventually convert them, whether that is booking an appointment or obviously purchasing from the site. So yeah, we're seeing definitely some promising results since the replatform and having those partners on board.
Good to hear. One for George. George, can we talk a little more about the best practices for a high-end customer experience online? When you're working with clients like Temperley, what are the kind of things that you're going into, that you're advising on?
Yeah, for sure. I really hate this word, but I actually kind of think compromise is really important. So I think, between form and function, one of the things that we often hear when we're talking to luxury brands, desire trumps reason as a phrase. And if you think about that in terms of functionality over look, I think, we hear lots of clients like a website to feel editorial, and obviously that there's a great way of being able to express your brand through that, but equally at the same time you need to be able to deliver commerce at the end of the day, right? So I think there's always got to be a compromise between those things, and then equally from if you bring in an acquisition point of view, from an SEO perspective even, there are certain things on a page that in luxury aren't considered to look very great. Take breadcrumbs as an example, is one that SEO typically always loses out on. But if you can compromise on some of those areas, you might be able to bring more people onto the website and perform better. So it's then about how can you incorporate some of these things without, giving away, compromising on the integrity of the brand and the look and the feel and everything that you want to achieve with that. And I think that's where you get success within these projects, is finding that sort of middle ground across these things where you can successfully, aesthetically get what you're after, but also functionally deliver for your customers. I think is really important.
Thanks, George. Emily, what about from yourself? I know obviously you'll have thought all the way from pre-purchase all the way to the unboxing experience and everything in between as well. How do you see online luxury retail sort of evolving from where it is today? And yeah, if you can touch on that a little more.
I was going to say also, that's so interesting. This is why, like what George was saying there about compromise, that's exactly the reason why we work with experts like him. But in my opinion, that luxury online experience is so service-led nowadays. I think there is never going to be everything that we can deliver in the online world that the physical can get. There's always going to be a need for both. Certainly in our experience with Temperley, where product and detail and feeling and putting that garment on is so important, and then balancing that with keeping return rates low is the challenge for us, really. So as I mentioned before, like was obviously fundamental in that whole process. But yeah, I mean, the online luxury experience is something that has to balance trust with fostering kind of that quality of product, and we can only do that so much, and that's where the likes of Harper comes in delivering that product and service, and actually hopefully going above and beyond what customers expect. I mean, it's such a surprise and delight moment from the feedback that we've had when these items get delivered and all of that is kind of taken care of. Certainly that's what luxury customers expect now. It's not about all these different friction points. In our experience, they want to be handheld somewhat in the process. They're not going to engage with all these different sizing predicting tools and all the other bells and whistles. It's so service led and kind of ensuring that seamless journey, that whether they're in store or online, like we're able to try and match that as much as possible. Of course, that's going to be an ongoing challenge, but and sometimes you're going to get it wrong. I mean, like there's obviously delivery challenges, and maybe the courier did like a poor delivery or something. So there's always going to be challenges and frustrations. And I think then what it really comes down to is just amazing customer service. And I'm going to credit our amazing Ivana here, because really delivering that human and personalized service is what is, fundamentally what customers are going to look for, and is going to turn a negative experience in a good experience. And we all know that word of mouth is invaluable. So for us, there's so much still to work on and so many challenges, but nailing that service and human touch throughout the process is, I think what I would say you have to fall back on.
I think to add on to that, I can't remember a conversation as in depth with a client before around size guides. I genuinely use this Temperley as an example, as best practice now for how to best do that. And I think we talk about service. I think you're 100% correct. There is so important, but it's about being there when required and allowing people to discover on their own time what they want to, but being available when they are, in need of questions or guidance and support. And the size guide for me does that so nicely, in that it showcases all the information you need. The answers are there for you to find them. But if you want support around this area, there's a link towards the contact us. That's when you can open the live chat. So you haven't got this persistent widget that's just loaded on the page, blocking content, getting in the way of customer journeys. But it's there when you need it. And then equally within that, to touch on the luxury thing again, you've got Harper there as a way of saying, like, if you're not sure about the sizes, why not utilize this service? And it's sort of, to me, that's a perfect example of getting that experience right for the customer. Is no matter where you are, you're understanding if you've shopped before, if you've not shopped before, all of that information, all of that service is there for you to be able to, to really get the answers you need and find the right product at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm really excited actually, Emily, to see the impact that Shopify POS has on Temperley, because I really do. I was at a conference last week, and it was mostly Magento merchants at this conference, and they were talking about how they are still struggling to offer click and collect. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is something that's been around on Shopify, forever. And I think the possibilities afforded with POS in terms of like buy online, pick up in store, or buy in store, have it delivered direct to you, I think will be super interesting in sort of bringing that online experience in store and vice versa as well. Cool. Is there anything else you want to share, Emily, on best practices, on how best to create that high-end experience online?
I think we've pretty much covered it, if I'm honest.
I will invite then, in that case, I'll invite Claudia and Sarah from Clearview and Harper Concierge to join us. And we will be taking some questions. So we have some questions that have been added in from the forum, so we can take those first.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Claudia, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Claudia. I look after global partnerships here at Clearview, mainly working with agencies, e-commerce platforms and tech to provide the most optimal discovery experience for their clients. But yeah, great to be here and really enjoyed that webinar. Super, super insightful.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm co-founder and partnerships director at Harper. And you guys have explained it brilliantly. So.
Cool, amazing. So the first question that we had in is a question for Sarah and Emily. What types of behaviour do you typically see when customers shop through Harper?
Do you want me to go first?
Go for it, Sarah.
So typically, like Zishan mentioned before, when people are shopping through the Harper channel, they shop more like they do in store. So if you think about yourself shopping in store, you might pick maybe 5 or 6 items up and then take them to the changing room, and then you might purchase 1 or 2. That's exactly how customers shop online. Obviously with Temperley, shopping 5 or 6 gowns online, I don't typically think that you guys would have seen that behavior before, because obviously the gowns are quite expensive, and sometimes it's an affordability challenge, but sometimes it's actually just the thought of that money being out, and actually the risk and the headache of thinking about it and making sure things get back. Sometimes it's just the admin of it that kind of puts people off. So we really do see people shopping like they do in store, but also it's a great kind of tool for new customers. Temperley London are definitely on the higher end in terms of the percentage of new customers that we see, but it is very common for our new customer percentage to be higher through the Harper channel, because quite often customers will find their size, and then, with other maybe less occasion-led brands, they might then shop a few times through the brand, through the normal channel, because they know what size trousers or t-shirt they are, and then they might go back to Harper when it's a new season and they're doing a bigger shop. So they kind of, change their behavior, which is exactly what us and the partners want to see.
Amazing. And Emily, anything to add from the merchant side on that? From Temperley's side?
Like Sarah said, we've been really pleased to see the uptake of it and it facilitating the acquisition side for us, because it is high value product. Still wanting to buy a 2.5K dress, so the way that customers can now try that with ease, and then also have the addition of a knowledgeable style concierge that is able to advise them is wonderful. So it's no surprise really that we have seen bigger basket sizes and higher converting value through the Harper channel.
Amazing. Next question is for myself and Claudia. So the question says, can you tell us about Shopify Markets and compatibility with other tech? So I'll explain a little bit about Markets, and maybe Claudia can chat about the compatibility. So Shopify Markets is Shopify's internationalization solution. What Shopify Markets allows you to do is, from the one storefront, have multiple versions of your store for specific regions or specific markets. Within the sort of markets admin, you can manage your products and pricing. So you can have pricing that is specific to a country or a market. You can manage your shipping, your fulfillment, your duties and taxes. And so we have like a large number of merchants that are on this, on like an older version where they have, maybe 9 different stores that they're managing for different regions. We're starting to see a lot more merchants now collapse those stores into one and utilize Shopify Markets to really manage everything from the one storefront. You can imagine trying to manage 9 different Shopify storefronts that don't talk to one another. It definitely becomes difficult. Now, one of the most interesting features that has been released quite recently is a feature called storefront contextualization. So this allows you to really tailor the content on the front end on a market level. And so, that was one of the pieces of feedback that Shopify got quite a lot was, this is all great, but, my US customers are still expecting to see pants rather than trousers. And so with the storefront contextualization piece, it really allows you to tailor that content on a market level. It is compatible with many different pieces of tech, and I will let Claudia touch on compatibility with Klaviyo.
Yeah, so we're just gearing up for our launch of Markets. It's currently in a closed beta with our priority agency partners, but we are going to be launching it in the next month. So essentially say goodbye to having to submit separate feeds for each market. We'll just be able to index the product catalog for every market automatically now through the plugin. So essentially gives merchants a lot more freedom to fine tune each market individually, setting up configurations, merchandising, and configuring to your heart's content essentially. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be out in the next month or so.
Amazing, Claudia. Thank you. Another question for you, Claudia, is what should I be thinking about other than search for product discovery?
Oh, good question. I think maximizing tech stack within discovery and like using other tech partners is super important. So I think Amelie touched on Klaviyo earlier. That's just one really good example of where you can feed in marketing, automation, and product discovery into one. So we launched our Klaviyo integration probably about 6 months ago, but we've done some really cool enhancements over the last 2 months. So essentially feeding in search term keyword data back into Klaviyo to optimize things like an abandoned search flow. So retargeting customers that have maybe searched but then not converted. And then also if you're using Klaviyo segments, you can feed those into Klaviyo and Klaviyo sound the same. I get them so mixed up. So feeding in Klaviyo segments into Klaviyo to really personalize and segment recommendations. So one really good use case we've had recently is with Cambridge Satchel Company, who had some really good outcomes in terms of conversion of those recommendations. So yeah, happy to share some more use cases in the follow-up. But I definitely think looking at other tech and how that can integrate with product discovery can be really powerful.
Thanks, Claudia. One for George. George, a question in the sort of question section. What are your thoughts on wait lists for new collection launches and any tips on how to implement this on our site? And that is a question from Sophie.
Did you say wait lists? Sorry.
Wait lists, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of being able to deliver a VIP experience. So we've worked with clients before, for example, where collections are on lockdown. You do lots of kind of marketing around the fact, teasing of new products and things like this, and then the ability to kind of segment based on VIPs of, you know, how much someone spent with you, how much they've how many orders they've placed, for instance, and then allowing those customers to see the collections first, I think is a really interesting tactic, especially around, you know, the building up excitement towards a launch. I think can work really well. So yeah, certainly that's something that's very, you know, common, something that we do often, and it really helps drive acquisition, and especially with the move towards first party data and how important that is. I think the idea of being able to collect customer accounts and, you know, for instance, incentivizing that only customers can see these collections, join the wait list is a really great way of being able to actually get more of that first party data, especially as we're no longer in the wild west of, you know, universal analytics and seeing every bit of information about customers.
Amazing, thank you. One for Sarah. Sarah, Zach has asked a question in the chat. He says, could you please tell me if it's advisable to apply Harper services to jewellery brand?
Yeah. So typically we say anything that you can try on. So there's some brands where we have to think about things like sofas and rugs and all sorts like that. But typically anything that you can try on, we'd recommend using Harper. And with jewelry, it really depends on the brand. But with more fine jewelry, what we tend to see, I'd say quite similar to Temperley actually, is that, you know, it might not be that customers will buy multiple pieces, but they will be more willing to try the higher price point pieces. And again, it's something that's really hard to buy online. So actually seeing the kind of craft of the jewelry in person really helps to sell it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it would work really well for jewellery, actually. One for Amelie. Amelie, a question from Sue in the chat is, what special considerations do you give to provide a luxurious online experience for customers interested in buying Temperley London accessories?
Interesting. So we actually haven't had that many accessories on Temperley for a while now. We quite narrowed down over the pandemic the categories that we were going to focus on. But of course, I mentioned that we're doing sunglasses and we are expanding our categories now. So, I mean, aside from, I think this applies to any product group really, is what we were saying earlier around really giving as much detail and information on that EP as possible, and yeah, really emulating the quality of that product with just, you know, descriptions, the quality of the imagery, contextualizing those accessories. How are you styling them with different looks, or giving kind of ideas around upselling and cross-selling as well. We have Shop the Look, for example. We go into the finer details under our PDP where we talk about how that product was made. Go into, some customers, they just want to see the top line, but we do give that much more in-depth information about the craft and the process and our approach to fabrications on the PDP. The only other thing that really comes to mind here is the fact that we also facilitate video appointments. And I think this comes, especially if it's something like bridal or a high value purchase, it's again bridging that offline and online. Sometimes customers can't travel to one of our stores. So it's pretty straightforward actually for one of our retail teams to have a video call and give that video appointment. And amazingly, we've seen bridal customers from Australia dial in to our Somerset store, because of course we can't expect everybody to travel to Somerset. We have that challenge all the time, trying to get people to travel to the West Country. But it's just trying to again be service led and give as much information as you can about that product, and really having that human and personal touch like you would have in store.
And maybe one for Zach that had mentioned in the chat that he has a jewellery brand. I've worked with many jewellery merchants on Shopify, and that seems to work really well for them, that appointment piece, being able to just dial in from wherever they are to discuss rings or other jewellery. So anyways, moving on. Another one for Emily is from Ivan. How do you feel the migration contributed to the enhancement of your marketing strategies and the expansion of brand awareness?
Oh, yeah, big time. We, alongside the replatform, we also changed marketing agencies. So it was a lot of change all at once. But as I kind of alluded to before, we were really struggling with these siloed systems and not having data that really was reliable. I suppose, it was kind of skewed in each platform and not really speaking and working coherently together. So Shopify has consolidated all of that. We've now got everything integrated, and it's amazing in terms of the marketing we can do and building, segmented audiences and lookalike audiences and our meta off the back of Klaviyo lists and so forth. So it's just opened up a wealth of opportunity in terms of marketing. And I'm not going to say that we're doing anything out of the unusual. We still have a long way to go, but just being able to have a foundation where the data is reliable, it is all there. We can glean so much insight from the behaviors now through Shopify, and Klaviyo obviously being our ISP, but also incredible in terms of the capabilities of audiences and segmentation. That has opened up all sorts of exciting things for us for marketing.
Really cool, thank you. A question from Daniel, which I am going to put to George. George, any recommendations to differentiate our shop from the most common rug e-commerce retailers? We are trying to bring to our users a high-end experience with a smooth touch and feel of what they see on our website.
For sure. I can't say I have first-hand experience of rugs, to be honest. But what I would say is I think it could be a really interesting thing for looking at. We worked with a furniture company for a long time called Donetti, who looked at sort of swatch examples, and the way of being able to deliver swatches was a really powerful way of understanding the quality of the fabric. I also think AR would be a really interesting one to look at there, to kind of understand, in a 3D sense, what that looks like and feels like. Certainly with Shopify, it's very easy to integrate AR functionality. The asset creation would probably be the more complicated angle of that to look at. But I certainly think that would be an interesting thing to look at. And then kind of, rich content on product pages probably would be the other thing to look at as well. So additional kind of content blocks to kind of build upon that the quality, lots of image-led kind of components, I think would help kind of deliver that for sure.
Thank you. And just on the AR piece, I guess, question for Claudia that's coming from Rosamond is, do you see AR playing a role on the website in the future to allow customers to try on items? I've seen this on some jewellery websites, and it can work well, to be able to see how a bracelet looks on your wrist, for example.
Yeah, I know it's definitely something I personally use a lot of, especially with like furniture. I've seen that on some furniture websites where you can like see the product on in your living room, and I think Pandora have this exact function as well. I think for sure it will become more prevalent as AI progresses. AI is all of the rage at the moment. Everything is AI. It's not something that we have yet explored within our Discovery Suite. We've played around with image search quite a lot, which is yielding some really good results. But definitely one to think about moving forward. And yeah, I can ask the product team. But yeah.
Cool. And sorry.
I was just going to say around that on AR as well. An example we worked on once was for the brand called Cubits, the glasses supplier, and their AR feature is really interesting. It's sort of littered throughout the customer journey. Try-on feature for switching between variants, colours, styles, sunglasses even as well. And yeah, certainly for jewellery, I think that would work really well.
Agreed.
And actually, within Shopify now, you can actually create the assets themselves too. So you can use your camera to scan and create that 3D model that you can then use for AR and VR. Cool. Let me just check if there are any more questions. Yeah, I think that is us for all the questions today. So I'd like to just say firstly, thank you to all of the speakers. Thanks, Claudia and Sarah, as well, for joining at the end and answering questions. There will be a recording available afterwards as well if you want to share it with your team. And yeah, thank you very much for joining, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Bye.